Howdy folks. Let's talk about the USS Puerto Rico dumpster fire. I was planning on leaving this until Monday's Mingles with Jingles, but there was no way I was ever going to get away with that. So, today it is, Friday the 13th, unlucky for Wargaming. Before we get started, I was watching the official World of Warships livestream on Twitch last night, which, unfortunately for Mr. Conway and Tucky, who drew the short straws and got wheeled out in front of an extremely hostile audience, who had had time to appreciate the full scale of the USS Puerto Rico grind and were not in a mood to take any prisoners. And I clipped the Twitch chat, which is popping up on screen for you right now. Now, I appreciate that Twitch chat as a medium of expression is not particularly well known for its sense of restraint or decorum, but I'm going to leave it running anyway, just so you can get a general taste of the mood of the community. And the source of the rage is this. Just over 2.5 weeks ago, on the 26th of November, I pushed out a video filmed on the test server entitled Dockyard Dandy. In this video, I covered the construction process of the USS Puerto Rico in the new dockyard feature that was coming in the Christmas and New Year patch that hit just this week. And I gave some pretty extensive and glowing praise to the feature. As usual, Wargaming's art department completely knocked it out of the park. The dockyard itself is fantastic. The construction process of all the individual components of the Puerto Rico is absolutely amazing. And the process itself didn't seem that bad. It seemed perfectly reasonable and achievable that you might actually be able to get this ship for free. It was kind of presented as a Christmas gift. And sure, if you maybe didn't have the time to spend a couple of hours every day grinding, then you could always throw some gold at the problem. And I suspected that that was probably going to be the route that most people were going to take who didn't have the time to spend a couple of hours every day grinding to get the ship for free. And even if that was the case, that's absolutely fine. Everybody's a winner. This is a free-to-play game after all. Wargaming makes some money from selling gold to people that want to get the maximum possible boost early in the construction, because the more shipbuilding points you stack up early on, the better the long-term benefits are going to be for you. So the basic thrust of my video was, here's a Tier 10 premium American battle cruiser that you can grind for free. It's basically a Christmas gift. But if you don't have the time to earn the shipbuilding tokens through directives, daily logins and combat missions, then you can throw some gold at it to shortcut your way to unlocking the Puerto Rico. And my expectation was that that was probably the route that most people were going to take. And that's perfectly fine. It's a Tier 10 premium after all. Unfortunately, it turns out that the values given on the test server, and we probably should have realised this, were just placeholders. The 3,000 gold that I spent on the test server to unlock the first 3 gold boosters was actually 24,000 gold on the live server, which is £70, 83 euros or 93 US dollars. Which, to put into perspective for you, is about 20% more than you'd pay in the premium shop for the ship that the Puerto Rico is based on, the USS Alaska. Except 20% less gets you a full USS Alaska, and in this case it only gets you the first 30% of the USS Puerto Rico. So 30% of the USS Puerto Rico was already the most expensive premium ship that World of Warships has ever offered. How are you going to unlock the other 70%? Well, you have 2 options. You can always just throw a further 35,000 gold at the dockyard. And some people already have. This is an amount of gold that you can't even buy on the premium shop in one go. You have to make multiple purchases. And when you've finally done it, in total you will have spent not far short of £200 and well in excess of $200 to buy a Tier 10 premium cruiser, when you could have spent the money on 4 Tier 9 premiums, 3 years of premium account time, or, I don't know, Christmas presents for your family maybe? Now, if there's something wrong with your head and you're not prepared to blow your entire family's Christmas budget on some pixels in a computer game, there is another way that you can unlock the Puerto Rico. And technically, you can do it for free. All you have to do is unlock shipbuilding tokens via the directives, daily logins, and combat missions. And if you believed that bullshit for even a second, I wonder if you'd be interested in investing in some prime Louisiana swampland real estate. Let's take a look at these directives. The first set of directives aren't actually that bad, and completing these will get you 200 shipbuilding tokens, which is enough to buy the first free boost. But even here, you can kind of start to get an idea of how things are going to go. The first one, Pyrotechnics, requires you to cause 165,000 hit points of damage to ships by setting fire, and that seems perfectly doable. It's an entirely reasonable directive. Next, Guardian of the Frontiers, destroy 65 ships. It's a lot of ships, but again, over the course of a couple of days before the next directive unlocks, it's not unreasonable to expect that you'd be able to do this. The next one, Trophy Year, 12 million credits. It's a bit steep. I mean, that's 12 really good games in the USS Missouri if you're lucky enough to own it, but there is some synergy between these different directives. For example, aircraft carriers, battleships, cruisers and destroyers also have directives where you're required to earn 4 million credits. So just by doing those other directives, you're going to complete the Trophy Year directive. And I've already completed 3 directives simply by knocking snowflakes off all of my tier 10 ships in co-op battle, because that's the simplest, fastest and most cost-efficient way of doing it. Although it's certainly not the best way of completing any of the credit earning directives, because the credit returns on co-op battle are abysmally bad. For that, you're definitely going to need to be playing ranked or random battles. Of course, if you're prepared to throw even more money at the game and you buy the Gorizia, the tier 7 premium Italian cruiser, there's a very, very simple way of completing 3 of the directives very easily just by playing the Gorizia. But let's take a look at the 3 objectives that I have completed just by knocking snowflakes off my ships in co-op battle. Under constant shell fire, 2.3 million hit points of potential damage. Easy enough to do in battleships. Controlling the water space. Get 40 defended, captured, or assisted in capture ribbons. Again, pretty easy to do. Sparklers. Get 100 set on fire or hits to citadel ribbons. Not difficult, but hang on a minute. How come I've managed to complete that one, but I haven't also completed Pyrotechnics, 165,000 fire damage? Well, that's because you can only complete Sparklers in battleships and cruisers. And if you want to complete Pyrotechnics, you have to be playing destroyers or aircraft carriers. So the 2 directives, they look like they're both capable of being done at the same time, but they're actually mutually exclusive. Moving on to Directive 2, and things start to get a little bit worse. And we're now in a playful mood, although when you see some of the later directives, you almost certainly won't be. And again, these are mostly just like the sort of thing you were expected to do in Directive 1, except harder. More grindy. Sink 90 enemy ships. Get 150 citadels, fires, floods or torpedo hits. Cause 5.6 million hit points of damage to ships. Santa's favourite. Receive 36 million hit points of potential damage. Again, you know, these are things that you're probably going to achieve with a couple of days of not too excessive gameplay, if you're any good. I mean, let's be realistic here. These are always going to be grindy directives, that's the whole point. So, they are definitely grindy, but so far at least not excessively so. Ooh, Wisdom of the Ages. 85,000 base experience. Shit. Then again, I mean, the average player doesn't really sink more than 1 ship per battle. I mean, that's 85 good games. And the length of time that's going to take you to sink 90 ships, you're probably going to accumulate 85,000 base XP anyway for the average player. The next one, Festive Decorations, I really don't like the look of. It requires that you shoot down 300 aircraft. So you basically have to hope that you get into battles with aircraft carriers. Won't that be fun? Experienced Navigator requires that you earn 400,000 experience And there are various different experience totals that have to be accumulated in various different classes of ships. And of course, if you've already thrown some money at Wargaming and bought the Gorizia, there are 4 of the 6 directives required that can be completed just by playing the Gorizia, and they're significantly easier than any of the other directives. But overall, directive number 2 isn't that bad. It's more grindy than number 1, but, well, that's what we should really expect. Moving on to directive number 3, and things actually start to look more promising. The scale of the grind in some cases is actually less than in the previous directive. And if you complete the 3rd directive, as well as 300 shipbuilding tokens, you also get the Gorizia and a 6-point captain for free, which will make it significantly easier to complete successive directives. In theory. This time around, instead of sinking 90 enemy ships, you only have to sink 72. Instead of 150 citadel or torpedo hits, it's only 130. The 4,500 secondary hits is going to be a bit of a challenge, as is the, holy shit, 320,000 commander XP, and the 105,000 base XP. But at least there is still some synergy going on between the various different tasks here, because you might have to get 105,000 base experience, which is a lot. But in the carriers, battleships, cruisers and destroyers, you also have to get 48,000 base experience. And once again, if you've already got the Gorizia, there are a bunch of basically gimme tasks here that will aid you in getting this directive complete. It's when we move on to Directive 4 that the synergy between all the various different tasks contained within the directive really starts to break down. There are only really 2 of these objectives that you can complete while also earning credit towards the others. Iron Will cause 9,300,000 damage to ships, and at its finest earn 9.5 million experience. Fucking hell, that's a lot. But all of the other objectives require that you be playing ships of different nations, so you can't complete them all at the same time. And remember, although we don't know for sure how many tasks within each objective you have to complete at this point, because that's only visible for the first directive at the moment, which requires that you do 6. But we don't know how many of these objectives you're going to have to complete in order to move on to directive number 5 and claim the reward for directive number 4. But it's in directive number 5 where things just start getting downright silly. And I don't mean earn 20,202,020 credits, 2020, get it? Or 150,000 base experience, holy shit. Yeah, those are pretty grindy, but wait until you have to tank 47 million hit points of potential damage. That's not so bad. I regularly tank 2 million damage per game in my German battleships. Yeah, but you can't do this in your German battleships. You have to do it in Japanese, Italian and Pan-American cruisers. Yes, really. Then there's 1,700 hits with Japanese and French battleship guns, 200 fire and floods in Japanese and Pan-Asian destroyers. And if, by the way, you thought that tanking 47 million hit points of potential damage in cruisers was going to be a colossal ball ache, don't worry, you have to do it twice. Once for Japanese, Italian and Pan-American cruisers, and once for American, German and Pan-Asian cruisers. Yeah, have fun doing those. Also, note that there is no synergy between these tasks. Aside from earning the base experience, 150,000 of it, and the 20 million credits, all of these tasks have to be completed independently of each other because they're in ships of different nations. Moving on to Directive 6, you have to earn another 20,202,020 credits. You have to earn another 150,000 base experience. And from here on in, not only are pretty much all of the tasks mutually exclusive and have to be completed independently of each other, but the numbers are just starting to get ridiculous. Well, I say they're starting to get ridiculous. They've actually been ridiculous for quite some time, but now they're just starting to leave the realms of possibility. 7,000 main battery hits with Soviet, Pan-Asian and European destroyers. 2,700 torpedo, rocket or bomb hits with aircraft carriers. 230 torpedo or citadel hits with German, Italian and Pan-Asian cruisers. You get the idea. I think I'm painting a fairly comprehensive picture here. A whole bunch of ridiculous numbers that can only be attained by specific types of ships of specific nations so that there is no synergy between any of the tasks that you're required to complete. It's pretty much just one soul-crushing grind after another. But soft. What light through yonder window breaks? Directive 7, Directive 7, wherefore art thou, Directive 7? First, there's the 20,202,020 credits again. Yes, we get it, 2020. It's worth pointing out that this can only be completed in Tier 10 ships, so if you don't have any, tough shit. Although, if you've managed to get this far, you've probably unlocked several Tier 10 ships by now. Preparing for the next year, 1.1 million experience in ships of Tier 8 or higher. And if you were expecting any kind of synergy between those two and the remaining tasks, you must be new here. British and Italian cruisers only, 350,000 experience. Same again in British and American battleships, and same again in British and Pan-Asian destroyers. And I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but those are the easy ones. Next, it's the free experience grind, starting with aircraft carriers. 350,000 free experience. Let me just break down for you exactly how the economy works in World of Warships. You earn free experience just by playing the game, but you only earn it at a rate of 5% of your other experience gains. So if you were to, for example, grind out 350,000 experience in British and Pan-Asian destroyers, because you do have to grind out 350 experience in British and Pan-Asian destroyers, that would only earn you 17,500 free experience. Not that it would matter, because you have to earn this free experience in aircraft carriers, French and Japanese cruisers, French and German battleships, and French and Soviet destroyers, for the grand total of an eye-watering 1.4 million free experience, or to put it another way, a USS Missouri and almost 2 HMS Nelsons. And just to put this into further context for you, here's a post-battle results screen from Dagoon in HMS Minotaur, who had a pretty damn impressive game with nearly 300,000 damage and not far short of 1 million credits received. He earned 2,412 free experience from this battle, which means that Dagoon would have to do this 580 times in order to earn 1.4 million free experience. To put this into further context, although I suspect you're probably mostly getting the picture by now, 1.4 million free experience is enough to pay for the base research cost of every Japanese battleship in the game, from the Kawachi at Tier 3 all the way up to the Yamato at Tier 10. Twice. All this, of course, is assuming you're going to get 1.4 million free experience for free. And of course you're not, because what Wargaming actually expects you to do here is convert existing experience locked on elite ships to free experience with gold. How much gold would it require to convert 1.4 million experience into free experience? Well, gold converts experience into free experience at a rate of 25 gold per 1 free experience. So 56,000 gold. An amount of gold so obscene that the premium shop won't even let you buy it in one go. It won't let you go any higher than 50,000. So after making the 2 purchases required in the premium shop, you'll have spent over £157, 188 euros or 210 US dollars to complete just one part of Directive 7 alone. So, bearing all of this in mind, hopefully you can appreciate why, aside from everything else, the sheer ridiculousness of the grind that you're expected to undertake, I am particularly pissed off because 2.5 weeks ago I did a video on the new dockyard feature and the USS Puerto Rico construction process based on my experience of it on the test server. And almost 100,000 of you watched that video, and almost everybody liked it and left comments saying how excited they were to see the dockyard feature in World of Warships, how they all thought that it was a fantastic way of introducing new premium ships and how the whole thing looked entirely reasonable based on the information I was giving them. And I know that people from Wargaming have seen that video, because at one point they were asking why other community contributors, aside from myself and Flamu, hadn't been highlighting the feature in videos and live streams of their own. And I can't help but wonder why, in the intervening 2.5 weeks since my video going up and Flamu showcasing it in his live stream on the test server and the actual thing going live, not one person from Wargaming thought it might be a good idea, either in private or in public, to correct some of the misconceptions that Flamu and myself were spreading in his live stream and my video. They were happy to just let it ride and let people find out the truth the hard way when the patch went live. I think I can honestly say that this is the first time in recorded history I have uploaded a YouTube video where somebody who knew better desperately needed to say, "Actually, Jingles," and decided not to. If Wargaming had come clean in advance of the patch, after my video, after Flamu's live stream, and after other community contributors had gotten onto the test server and done their own dockyard videos, and presented equally rosy pictures of the Puerto Rico's construction, if they'd come clean about it between that happening and the patch going live, they'd still probably be getting a ton of shit over it, because it is just an absurd grind, and it's clearly aimed at the 1% with the money, the whales, the guys who just throw money at everything, regardless. I mean, that much is abundantly clear. This is not a grind for casual players, at all, in any way, shape or form. This isn't even a grind for the unicorns. I mean... 1.4 million, fuck off, no. But if they'd at least come clean about it prior to the patch going live, it would have softened the blow. It wouldn't have been popular, but they wouldn't be dealing with the public relations dumpster fire that they're dealing with now, because people's expectations were so high, thanks to all of the work that community contributors did to raise awareness and expectations of the dockyard and the Puerto Rico construction based on our experience on the test server. An experience that Wargaming were quite happy to let ride until it was far too late. I saw something very similar recently in World of Tanks. One of the World of Tanks community contributors, Circumflex, has published a video on a very similar grind, practically unobtainable grind, for whatever the latest Tier 8 premium tank is in World of Tanks. And he did publish a very, very good video on it, where he explained that people were looking at it the wrong way. It was kind of like the Puerto Rico Directive grind, where the later directives would just forget it. It's almost never going to happen. But people were looking at it the wrong way. They shouldn't be looking at it as a free tank, or a free ship in the case of the Puerto Rico. Instead of looking at the horrendous grind and just saying, "Oh, this sucks, how can I get it for free?" Don't look at it as a grind for a free tank or a free ship. Instead, look at the number of directives that you could reasonably expect to complete without necessarily going out of your way and just playing the game as you normally do. And let's say, for example, I can't remember the exact numbers in the World of Tanks example that I'm talking about here, but let's say there are 6 directives and you think you can complete 3 of them. That's a 50% discount in the final cost of the tank in the premium store. And that was how Circumflex has encouraged people to look at it. And that is in fact how it worked in World of Tanks. And this is one of those very rare occasions where I can honestly say World of Tanks is doing something better than World of Warships. Because it doesn't work like that in World of Warships, not with the Puerto Rico. If you don't unlock the Puerto Rico at the end of the grind, all of the resources that you've sunk in, let's say you've already paid 24,000 gold for the first 3 gold boosters, all of the time that you've sunk into grinding out the directives, it's gone. And your alternative is to either kiss the ship goodbye and maybe buy it when it becomes available in the premium shop later, or pony up the extra 35,000 gold to finish construction of the ship in the dockyard before the event ends. Which is, of course, exactly what Wargaming hopes people are going to do. And it's such a shame, because this whole dockyard thing could have been, and should have been, one of the best things to be introduced into World of Warships since, well, ever. And the dumpster fire surrounding the Puerto Rico at the moment is completely overshadowing everything else to do with the Christmas and New Year patch. And it's a really good patch, if you forget that the Puerto Rico exists. I mean, there's so much good stuff in the patch. I mean, the art team themselves have once again completely outdone themselves with the dockyard, the construction process visually on the Puerto Rico. There's free containers just for logging in. There's snowflakes that you can knock off all of your tier 10 ships to get even more free containers. There's snowflakes you can knock off your tier 8 and 9 ships to get free steel, free coal from all of your other ships. There's the captain's logbook, but nobody cares about any of that thanks to the Puerto Rico dumpster fire. And you know what, Wargaming? You've got nobody to blame but yourselves. In closing, I think it's only fair to point out that since I actually started producing this video, Wargaming have produced a couple of documents explaining their thinking behind the Puerto Rico, and helpfully, actually, because the maths behind it all has been so difficult to figure out, a fairly comprehensive guide that does explain exactly what you have to do to unlock the Puerto Rico by the end of the event, based on how many of those 3 initial gold boosters you're prepared to buy. And a quick look at the document shows that if you're planning on buying the first 2 of the premium boosters, then the grind is actually reasonably achievable. You only have to do the first 4 directives, which is, it's reasonably achievable. It's not what everybody was expecting, which is why I'm making this video, but it is at least achievable. Anyway, I'll put links down below in the video description to both of these documents. If you care, I do recommend you check them out. And I hope that you haven't actually spent any money on the Puerto Rico, at least until you check out these documents. As far as the ongoing shit show surrounding this ship is concerned, I think I'm done for now. There are far, far better things that I could be doing with my weekend. And they don't involve grinding the Puerto Rico. Ain't nobody got time for that shit. Nevertheless, I hope this video has helped frame the situation for you and make clear my opinion on the subject. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.